Well, good morning. Thank you very much for coming in. Earlier this morning, I just want to start with an overriding question. Earlier this morning, we played a report by our colleague Dimakaso Tugwana, in which there's a clip of Commissioner Thembinkosi Bonakele. And in that, I think that was done this weekend or last Friday, he says, when he's responding to the fact that the prevalent form of corruption in the private sector is price-fixing cartels, he says, and I quote, "We've stopped being shocked now. We are no longer shocked by this." I mean, that's really a sad state of affairs where an authority like Competition Commission and us, we've come to the point to realize that this is such a prevalent thing that it's become the norm.
Yes, indeed, but then it's so sad. Cartel conduct, also collusion, it's so prevalent. I think that it has been happening for a long time, and nobody has been worrying about it. And very many of these enterprises have been involved in it. And very many of them, they think that when then we pounce on them, they think they've done nothing wrong. In fact, you will see in very many of the cases that we've done recently, they all start by saying, but we've done nothing wrong, until one or two of them start pleading guilty, and then you see them coming and falling one by one. And that's, I think, part of the problem. It's so pervasive, it's so widespread, that very many of these industries or captains of industries, they think that it's part of business, of fixing prices, coming together, having these cartels. And at the end of the day, the biggest casualties are the consumers, because at the end of the day, they bear the brunt of these fixed prices, of these market allocations, and they are given no options in terms of better price.
I mean, this morning, I mean, throughout the day, ENCA today is going to be focusing on corporate corruption, private sector corruption. But this morning, our focus, our spotlight is on the construction industry as an example, and the food industry in terms of the bread price-fixing scandal that took place years ago, including Tiger Brands, Pioneer Foods, and that. But as you say, this is more prevalent than that. You, as a competition commission, are you capacitated enough that when these things come up to you, you are able to deal with them currently? And can you give our viewers a sense of how many cases currently you are seized with in terms of cartel conduct, price fixing, collusion, whatever you call it?
But then over the last year or two, cases have been really coming up. I think people are beginning to understand the kind of work that we do. They are familiar now with our processes, but also they are familiar with the features that we are looking for in the market that give us concerns, that unsettle us in terms of competition. So the numbers have really gone up, and we really need to be much more resourced. We have raised the matter with the relevant authorities. We are hoping that we are going to hear from them. But look, when we look at the resources that we have and the number of cases that we are getting, very, very soon, I think we are going to have serious problems in terms of backlogs, because we need to deal with all these cases. We are, I think, dealing with a situation where there was a sense of impunity. People were doing this, as I said earlier, it's so widespread. So we are having a number of cases. For example, this year only, we are now at the 100 mark in terms of cartel cases, which is up from last year. Last year we dealt with about 86 cases. Now we have reached 100. We have finalized about 30 in terms of agreements and so on. Many of them were taking to the competition tribunal.
I want to speak about this agreement thing, because one of the colleagues, and we're asking our viewers now, what do they think should be done? And some people are saying, no, these guys, they think because they can pay a fine, it's over. It must end with prosecution. Are you bound by law as a competition commission or competition tribunal to enter into agreements where there's a settlement and then there's an amount of money that company A and yourselves agree they will pay in lieu of that cartel conduct on which you found them guilty?
Yes, but you must remember our processes are civil processes. At the end of the day, there must be a penalty, and the law allows us to charge up to 10% of their turnover. However, the law was amended about 2 years ago, which effectively say that very many of these cases, of these transgressions, should be criminally charged. And we are talking to the National Prosecuting Authority, we are talking to the South African Police Service, and we are looking at cases which we think they can take forward in terms of prosecution.
So the new law, the amended Competition Act, let's just call it that for simpler words, makes room for criminal proceedings?
Yes, indeed. What the law says is that once we are done with our processes, the criminal law enforcement agencies can look into these issues and then follow up with prosecutions. But I must also add, some of these things, when you look at them at face value, I think you can also look at issues of fraud and issues of corruption. So there are common law issues that criminal law enforcement agencies are looking at. And I think, as I said to you, we're looking at these cases, we're giving them some files together so that people can be criminally prosecuted.
Okay, just for clarity, very quickly, you must say yes if I'm right, that this law came about 2 years ago. So any case that you are currently busy with that was reported on before the amended law will still be dealt with under the civil regime of the old. Post that, any case that you're going to be going forward, if somebody, as you do your civil case and you do whatever you need to do, but you realize that there's some criminal side of this, you'll then hand that over to the law enforcement agencies for criminal investigation. Am I correct?
You are very correct, Praten. The law was passed about 2 years ago, so very many of the cases that we are doing, that's why you will see largely these agreements. The law doesn't apply retrospectively, doesn't go backwards, and therefore it goes forward. So all the transgressions that took place after the law was amended, we are indeed talking to the law enforcement agencies. But I must also add that where there are features of common law issues, of fraud, as I said earlier, and corruption, they can look at them even if it was before the law was amended.
It doesn't, okay, fine. Finally, how do you get to start investigating? Very briefly, I mean, can I write to you and say I'm suspecting there's a collusion there, or because this, or is there a particular process very quickly that people must go through to get in touch with you, so you as a competition commission can begin to investigate alleged collusion or any form of corruption?
Yes, indeed. Anybody can. If you look, you think that these prices are too high and these are the only guys who are trading here, there must be a problem. Or you think that these prices are too low, they are trying to get rid of competition, you must report to us. But also if you think that there are certain things, why do these companies charge the same prices yet they are in competition? Because competition demands that competitors give different options to consumers. So if you go, you call us, or you go to our website, www.compcom.co.za, there are forms there. But we can also take you through in terms of how you can comment. Don't worry about complications, we'll deal with them. We have the experts, but if you see features, just talk to us, we'll take it forward.
Thank you very much. The Competition Commission spokesperson, Sipho Ngwema.